How would you like to be a mind reader? People's brains process information, they think, in 3 different ways. And their body language will tell you all day long what their primary style is. You just need to know what to look for and what to do when you see it. We are not talking about her arms are crossed, she's frowning, so she must be unhappy. It's actually understanding how their brains work and then presenting your information in a way that people can see it, hear it, and feel it. How can you read people's body language to read their minds? We are going to show you right now. First type are lookers, they represent 75% of people in the world. What that means is that person brain thinks in pictures and images. And here's how we can tell that person is a looker from his body language. First thing. He stands up tall. He has good posture. Second. He's dressed well, because appearance is important to lookers. The next thing you'll notice about that person is that he holds a little stress in his shoulders. Next thing, you'll notice he has wrinkles in his forehead because he looks up when he remembers something he has seen, and he looks up more often than most of us do. Next thing you'll notice about him is that he has thin lips. We're not quite sure why lookers have thin lips, but most of them do. And the last thing about lookers is they give you lots of eye contact. Now you know that person is a looker. Here are 2 things you do to build rapport with him. The first is that you give him lots of eye contact. Because he literally believes, if you do not look at him, you are not paying attention to him and you are ignoring him. The second thing you do with lookers is you give them words that have a visual component to it. I see what you mean, or look at this, or let's picture working together this way. So, you use the type of language that is going on in lookers' brain. Those are lookers, 75% of people in the world. Second type that represents 20% of the people in the world. And you can call them listeners. What this means is that person brain thinks in words and sounds. And this is the body language that you will see in a listener. First thing, listener not as well dressed as looker because appearance is not as important to them. Next, listener has a tendency to look down and to the left. Because that's where you look when you're remembering something you have heard. The next thing you'll notice about listeners is that a lot of times they'll put their heads in their hands. It's called telephone posture. Another thing you'll notice about listeners is that they have a tendency to mumble to themselves. It's that they think in words and sounds, so they's literally talking to themselves. Another thing you'll notice about listeners. They are the pen clicker and the bangers of the pen on the table. If you want to appeal to listeners, you do 2 things. The first thing. You do not give them lots of eye contact. It freaks them out. That when they're speaking, you look at them. And you look away. And when you're speaking, you look at them and then look away. The second thing you do with listeners is that you use words that are auditory. For example, that sounds good to me. Or let's talk this over. That's the type of language their brain uses. So you're using that to appeal with them. Listeners, 20% of the people in the world. The third type are represented 5% of the people in the world, can call them touchers.
It's not what you think.
In feelings and tactilely. And here's the kind of body language you will see in a toucher. First thing and the biggest tell in touchers is whether or not they've ever met you before in their lives, they are ready to hug you. Second thing you'll notice about touchers is that they are dressed for comfort rather than style. Next thing is that they have full lips. Next thing you'll notice about touchers is that they have a tendency to lean in because they are trying to decrease the amount of physical space between you and them and build rapport that way. Touchers also have a tendency to reach out and touch your arm when they're in conversation with you. And touchers also have a tendency to look down because that's where you look when you're remembering something you have felt. You want to build rapport with touchers, 5% of the people in the world? Here are the 2 things you do. If you feel comfortable, let them touch you, appropriately please. But if you don't feel comfortable, because a lot of us, if you've never met somebody and they're ready to give you a bear hug, the last thing you want to do is go. Because we've all done that. And it does not build rapport. So, if a toucher's coming at you and you don't feel comfortable, stick your hand out. Give these people a point of contact with you. That's what they're looking for. The second thing you do with touchers is you use language that either has a feeling to it or is tactile. For example, I want to hear how you're feeling about this. Let's get in touch. Reach out and tell me what you think. That's the kind of language that appeals to touchers, people who process information in feelings and tactilely. Now you're probably thinking, which one of these three am I? Let's figure that out right now. What I want you to do is close your eyes and remember an important memory. This could be something from your childhood. Maybe your 10th birthday party or something that happened to you last week. So, an important memory. Now I want you to pay attention to how you're remembering it. Are you remembering it like a movie or a series of pictures and images? Are you remembering it by hearing what people said or describing what happened? Or are you remembering it by how you felt or how things felt to you? Okay, open up your eyes. Are you remembered it like a movie? Right, you are like the most of the people. Or you were describing it to yourself or remembering what people said? Right, listeners. And finally, if you remember it by how you felt or how things felt to you. Right, now you know who you are. The bad thing is you're going to treat everybody else as though they think the same way. I want you to start paying attention to other people's body language to figure out how they think. Because here's the magic part of it. Once you start presenting your ideas in a way that they get them, they will say yes to you more often.